question for Riff is, when you have this clear assessment about the snatch being generally, potentially a nuisance for someone who is not skilled in locking that fast-moving bell overhead, what would you say would be good things to do for people with kind of iffy shoulders? You're not entirely confident about their shoulders. What would be a few good exercises for those people to train in?
Are you talking?
That's a medical term, by the way. Iffy.
Iffy, yes. Iffy. It's a technical term. Are we talking about kettlebell exercises or just general approach?
Any. We're talking about any exercise.
Well, the first thing is the progressions, the correct order of training in my, thought process goes back to, Paul Chek, whose the idea was, flexibility first, which you can now, flexibility is a bad word, so it's flexibility, mobility, right? Stability, strength, endurance, then power. So the thing is, like, if you don't have shoulder flexibility, mobility, that's what we're working on with variations, whether it's overhead stretches, whether it's stick work, whether it's, the traditional FMS approach, those correctives, working on overhead range of motion. And then, again, stability work overhead. It may just be, the two-handed kettlebell press overhead and hold for time, arm bars, things like that. It's building strength. And then, of course,
would the overhead walk, would that figure in your list? The
Which?
Overhead kettlebell walk, would it be safe?
Not until see, that's the thing. If you don't have that overhead lockout strong and stable, walking just makes things harder. Walking is a progression. So first thing I wanted them to do is be able to hold the weight overhead for a minute. I mean, that to me is one of the best rotator cuff exercises, strengtheners there is, because the rotator cuff is a stabilizer, not a prime mover. So I don't want them, if they're having trouble getting the weight overhead and holding it for a minute, then walking is, to me, is an incorrect progression. Once they can, walking is easy. People who have really good bone lock overhead and really good full range of motion, walking, then it becomes more of a conditioning exercise rather than shoulder mobility strength exercise. So that would be the case. And then, barbell or, like I said, stick or pipe work overhead, just as far as increasing range of motion. It depends on the person and depends on their goals. Some people are, you've got the desk athletes, that spend all day on the desk. And, getting them to just put their arms over their head is a major feat, much less with a weight. So it really depends. Obviously get-ups or partial get-ups are really good. Depends on their goals and depends on their motivation.
Right. Now, for this kind of person, would you say that the landmine press, the half-kneeling variants or standing variants, would these be good things to do?
It could be. It could be. Remember, okay, you can't remember because I haven't told you don't know, but my approach to it is always based on the 7 primal patterns. When I'm doing program design for people, so you've got squatting, lunging, pushing, pulling, bending, twisting, and gait. So I want something from all those primal patterns. So you've got a push pattern. It may be a horizontal push. It may be like a landmine, which is more like a 45-degree angle, or it may be overhead. Some type of pushing pattern. It could be crawling as a pushing pattern because people are, again, it depends on the population you're working with. I work with basically mostly sedentary people, 50 to 75 or older. So for them to get on the floor and be able to crawl and be able to push themselves off the floor, that's a really good transferable functional strength that will work in their life. Again, it's more advanced because you really have to be able to synchronize your core. It's a partial range of motion, which is safer in one way, but does it transfer to overhead? Not so much. And again, bench work, dumbbell presses, incline presses, seated presses. There's a variety of pushing motions that I might give someone. Obviously, it's completely dependent on their individual position needs and abilities at that moment. So that might be one of them. Nothing wrong. Everything has its use,
Right.
depending on what the real need and goal is.
Did you used to cross your legs before?
I don't know. I knew I crossed one leg before my knee replacement. Yeah.
All right. The kettlebell jerk. Why is this? I've had a couple of people agreeing with me when I say this. Why is it that the Strong First school seems to be rather muted in its talk on the jerk? We talk of the swing, we talk of the heavy press, we talk about our human get-ups, we're excelling at these moves. But when it comes to the jerks, it seems that we are probably not very aggressive in them.
No, I think a lot of that, there's a couple factors. One, most of the things have been based around level 1 skills. That's the emphasis of what we have focused on. Level 2 skills, that's still an evolution in that certification. Excuse me. So the evolution of that in terms of the techniques and the approach has just taken a backseat to really focused on the level 1 skills, getting as many good instructors competent and worked up on the higher levels of the level 1 skills. And I think there just hadn't been that many level 2 certifications or people that were interested in it to really take it to the next level. And there's no competitions. So when there wasn't really a showcase for that. So we had the Beast Challenge, so that really focused on the single belt press. We have the TSC, which is again, pull-ups, deadlifts, and snatches. So there really wasn't a showcase for us doing that. Now with Newbert's, kettlebell muscle and kettlebell strong and the emphasis on double work, I think that'll take that to another level. But I think without kind of a showcase other than going to test it, and again, it comes back to what Pavel talks about Americans in general, really having limited mobility overhead. Double jerks is no joke. You have to have serious T-spine mobility and, serious, your whole lumbar spine has to be very pliable and very mobile in order to be able to assume the correct positions, especially without Olympic heels. When you're doing it flat-footed, it's much more difficult than with the Olympic heel. So for all those reasons, and I think just the real focus on level 1, it just kind of not got lost. And then we had that little foray into, Viking power. The Viking push press was completely off the hook in the wrong direction.
Of faded, is it? Do we?
Well, it was basically a made-up move. There's really, holding the weight overhead and then dropping. It was focused on a conditioning factor that just never really worked. And I think we were right to we looked at it and then let it go because it really didn't have much application. The bell was too light. Heavier bells wouldn't work. So here you go.
I'll just momentarily argue with you about saying that, the requirement for serious T-spine mobility is what has kept the focus of jerks being. I mean, you said it's one of the factors, right?
Right.
Now, the same holds true for the Turkish get-up or for the bench press or for the snatch.
Well, the bench press is a problem, yeah.
So we do boast of heavy bench presses. I mean, all our instructors love to show off their heavy bench presses, and rightly so, of course. I love it. I admire it. But then, why are we laid back or, we're relatively quiet about the jerk? That's just a thought I just wanted to share with
No, I think it's changing, and I agree with you. It has been, but I think it's changing. Right. And I think we just need people to really, like you said, Jeff Newport's really taken the lead on that. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more people, detailing, hard-style jerk technique and volume and weights. And, okay, I did, 100 jerks with double beasts, that type of thing. I agree. I can't do them because of my shoulders. So I think it would be good, but something, you have Dave Whitley basically bringing the bent press back. The get up is different because it's a single arm. If we had a single arm jerk focus, I think more people would get into it. But I think it really takes someone who is going to make that the emphasis. And again, you can only have so many, priorities, right?
Yeah, sure. A quick question about the snatch, and I don't know why I'm asking you so many questions about the snatch. I've seen people like Donnie Thompson do snatches outside their legs, double snatches outside their legs. And obviously this is not something we tend to encourage, right? We snatch with the bells between the knees. Do you think that we are underutilizing what could be a powerful move for at least some people? The double snatch outside the legs?
I played with them. The problem is the risk-reward ratio is really bad. If you miss, you're going to take your knees out.
Right.
And, depends on your structure. If you have really short arms and longer legs and your knees are farther away, you can swing your bells on the outside without a problem. Yeah. If you make a mistake, it'd be ugly.
Yeah.
It's just a dangerous
something
move.
that I learned from Donnie when I asked him about this. He said that people like me, that's what he said, super heavyweight class, for them, bringing the bells down is not going to get their knees in the way. Their knees are they're so broad that the bells are going to be well away from the knees. Anyway, that was just an interesting experience.
I think it's just dangerous.
Sorry?
I think it's just dangerous, mostly, for most people.
Okay.
That's why I bought club bells. I bought club bells to do outside my leg lifts because that's not dangerous. So it accomplishes kind of the same thing if you want to have a close stance, arms outside your legs.